welcome to Those Forking Fangirls, where we talk all things nerdy book, TV, movie, pop culture, fandoms, and how they integrate into our adult lives. This is episode 5. Welcome to our Twilight special spectacular Thanksgiving Twilight spectacular. And today we're going to be discussing how Twilight was a game changer for both of us. It literally changed our lives, and make fun of us all you want from that statement. Once you hear we'll be able to unfold our stories today so you can understand where we're coming from there. And also we're talking just all Twilight.
I was going to say,
What were you saying?
Our harrowing adventures in the Twilight verse.
Harrowing?
Yes.
That sounds like dramatic.
I'm trying to make it dramatic.
Happy Black Friday. Happy Thanksgiving. We timed this because Twilight feels like a Thanksgiving event, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, historically, almost every Twilight movie came out around Thanksgiving or right before Thanksgiving, besides Eclipse, which came out on June 30th or July 30th?
It was June, yeah. It was June.
Yeah, June 30th. And I remember we still call it like Twivember because it was just like the whole month was just like getting ready for the Twilight movies. So this month always feels like it's a Twilight time of year.
Yeah. I mean, all of my memories that like pop up on Facebook and like Twitter sometimes are like Twilight related, like New Moon today or like Twilight today. Oh my God, Twilight merch. Like all sorts of random Twilight shit that I stated very embarrassingly on my Facebook status.
All the time. It wasn't just you. It was everyone. It was me too. So.
All right. Well, before we move into our big discussion today, so it's a special, and since we have so much Twilight stuff to talk about, we're not doing our normal news and what right now segments and Akatar segments, so those will be back next week. This is our like Thanksgiving fun Twilight special, and we just don't want to go on and on for like 4 hours because we know that we have a lot of Twilight stuff to discuss. But before we get into that, we wanted to thank our new patrons. We are so grateful for everyone supporting this podcast. We want to say a special thank you to Courtney, Gemini, Kristen, Lulu, Tiffany, Isabel, Katie, Brittany, and Emma. Thank you for supporting us on Patreon. For those of you who don't know, we have a Patreon where there are lots of fun perks. Our big one being our half-an-hour extra show every week called Fangirl Tea Time, where we talk about more personal stories. And there are lots of other perks up on our site. And you don't have to support. You don't have to be a patron. You don't have to be a patron to support the pod. Natasha, how else can they support the pod?
You guys can tell a friend. You can rate us and review us on any of the podcast apps. Spotify or Apple are the two popular ones. And, share on social media as well. If you can tweet about it, for however long we have Twitter, or talk about us on Instagram story. We appreciate any and all support.
We really, really do. And make sure you're following the pod for free on your favorite podcast app. That is super helpful. So we make sure that our shows are getting out to you every week. And you can follow us on YouTube now. That's where we're going to be posting our visual versions of our episodes. So we've been thus far posting them on our channels, but now we're going to be posting them on the Those Forking Fangirls YouTube channel. So if you like watching the show rather than listening to it, that is where it is. Make sure you subscribe over there. And when you're watching, like right now, click the like button. That is enormously helpful. Like all these little interactions do so much for the pod. So thank you so much. We are so appreciative.
I love our visual version because we actually get to see comments from people, because
it's usually so weird not getting comments.
Exactly. It's like we put a show out and we're like, what does everyone think?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, at least I can go to YouTube and I can see people talking and having conversations within the comment section.
Yeah, and I love when people comment in the Patreon so that we can see them discussing.
Yes.
But it's so different than like when you put up anything on YouTube or TikTok or Instagram where you get feedback. And we put up this enormous show where we talk about so many things, and it's like, does anyone have thoughts? So we love when you interact with us in any way. If you don't want to like post on those, email us, thosequirkyfangirls@gmail.com. Like, we love engaging with you guys. We want to talk to you, not just at you. So please, if you have thoughts or feelings, like, let us know, or just hit the like button. Yeah. Anyway, all right. Let's move on in to our big Twilight discussion. We're going to start from the very beginning. It's a very good place to start. And I'm going to ask you, when is the first time you heard the word Twilight in relation to this book series? And I feel like it's after me, so I don't know if you want to throw it back to me. But
you should go first.
You think I should go first?
Because your timeline is more skewed.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So,
when did you hear about Twilight?
When did I hear about Twilight? Now, this like, I can trace my life now back to this core pivot point of Twilight.
Same.
Which is insane. So I was listening to MuggleCast. I used to work at my dad's office, and what I would do there every day is file.
How old were you?
Okay, well, I started working there when I was 16 for 2 hours after school every day, and that's where I discovered podcasts. Because Harry Potter, the 7th Harry Potter book was coming out. I wanted to talk about the books with somebody, so I found Pottercast and MuggleCast. And to get me through those hours, I would listen to those podcasts because I was doing filing. And if you've ever done filing work, it is some of the most boring work you will ever do. And I had stacks and stacks of files, like dating all the way back to the beginning of the company that I was putting in these filing cabinets. So I was listening to MuggleCast all the time. And so this was like a year later or 2 years later, once I could drive. 16 in New Jersey, you're not allowed to drive by yourself. Once I got my license, every lunch I would get the hell out of there and sit in the parking lot of like Taco Bell and read a book and eat my Taco Bell. And so I was listening to MuggleCast one day, and they started talking about Twilight and how a lot of people are talking about it. And it kind of, rang a bell in my brain because one of my friends in high school had mentioned that she read these books called Twilight. And that's all I had heard until this MuggleCast episode when they were like, oh, a lot of people are talking about this new Twilight book and it's getting really popular. And this is probably, it's in 2008. So it's right after I graduated high school and I'm working in the summer. And it's probably like May, June. And I go to Target when I finish my book that I'm reading, because that is where I get my books. It's right near the office, so I can go during my lunch hour. And I stop in front of this book with the apple and the hands because it looks familiar. I feel like I've just seen the cover around. And then I'm like, oh, wait, this is Twilight. This is that book they were talking about on MuggleCast. My friend read this book. So I buy it. And then I sit in my car, eating my fucking Taco Bell, reading Twilight, being like, what is the big whoop with this book? And I didn't have that much time left that day. So I read like the first 30 pages in the bathtub that night. And I was just like, I don't get it. Why is everyone obsessed with this? Then we got to the good parts. Like, then they started talking about mountain lions. And I was hooked. I started to fall for Edward.
Mountain lions hooked you.
So wait,
I'm
yeah. Go ahead.
I'm confused about the timeline here. Like, what year was this?
Okay, so this is the beginning-ish of 2008. So it's either like May or June of 2008.
Okay.
That I found this.
So it's right before Breaking Dawn.
So Breaking Dawn came out August 4th, 2008. So it wasn't
Yes.
out yet once I started these books. And I didn't know anything about the movie until after I had started reading it. But I didn't look at the movie until after I had read the book. I did not look at the trailer because I didn't want anyone ruining the images in my head, you know? Yes. So do you want to tell us about when you first heard about Twilight?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think. Okay. So
Or should I keep moving down the timeline? But I feel like I should get your story.
Yeah, so I didn't start hearing about Twilight literally till right before Breaking Dawn was coming out. So this was like July of 2008. My best friend Abby.
Oh, yeah.
um,
Wait. How old were you? We should have those markers.
Okay, so this was July 2008. I was going into my freshman year of high school.
Okay.
So I was 14.
And I
So
was
it was
17.
the summer before high school. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was like right after high school. Wow, we're like you're going into high school and I'm going into college.
It's crazy.
Okay, continue.
Yeah, so I mean Abby had read them in middle school. And she
Abby's
like
your
didn't
best
tell me
friend?
about Abby's my best friend. Yeah, she didn't tell me about them. And I was like, what the heck, Abby? She's the one who shared Taylor Swift with me. She's the one who like got me into so many things.
Wow, Taylor Swift
I
too.
know. Yeah. I distinctly remember we were at high school church camp. So this is like our freshman year at church camp. And you go off to like a lake for a week and you're just with like a bunch of high school friends and everyone is talking about how Breaking Dawn is coming out the day we get back and how they're all going to go and get it that night at midnight. And I'm like, "Wait, what is this? Like, excuse me?" And I just remember like Abby and like a bunch of our friends in the same grade were like all walking back from the lake and they're talking about like what's going to happen with Bella and Edward. And like, so
Oh
I
my
was
God.
I was like spoiled a little bit because that had like stuck in my head about how like Edward and Bella were together and how like they were getting married. And I was like, oh, okay. I mean, because I overheard it, but I wasn't a part of the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I first started hearing about it. It was all through like church camp. And
Okay.
yeah, and I wasn't a big reader, so I just didn't have a lot of interest in like picking up the book. But it had intrigued me. And so that's kind of when I start. I didn't read the books. I mean, should I go into when I read them or should I
No,
wait?
let's wait because I have something to add here because I also so I loved reading, but I didn't ever know what books I would like. So I would go into the bookstore and get a book and like hope that I was gonna like it, but I would try to read it. And you know, if you don't like a book, it's really hard to slog through it. So I would end up stopping a lot. And I had two series or authors that I would know that I would love, and so I would reread them all the time. So I was rereading Dan Brown's books just all the time, and I was rereading Harry Potter all the time because I didn't know ever that I was going to like anything else, and I would buy it and I wouldn't like it. I just didn't know which ones. I had no system. I didn't know about Goodreads because it was 2008. I mean, I'm sure Goodreads probably existed, maybe. I don't know when it came into being. But I didn't, young adult wasn't a section in the bookstore like it was after Twilight. So it probably was starting to exist, but I didn't know of it because no one told me about it. Like there was the children's section and then there was everything else. And I had no idea where to go. And I would look at other thrillers and read the occasional non-Dan Brown thriller, and sometimes I would like it, sometimes I'd put it down. I would get random books. It was just like the wild, wild west in there. So
Really?
yeah,
I remember like my mom, like that summer is when I wanted to like start reading because we had gone on like a couple of like beach vacations and she's like, here, read this. And I like picked up a Danielle Steele book and like much older like romance books where I just don't connect with the characters.
yes.
But I was trying.
Yeah, so that's the thing, and this is really sad. But I think it's true for a lot of us growing up in this time. At school, the books that we were reading were never about a teenage girl. I read so many books about boys, and even like Dan Brown,
Men.
I was reading about men, and those were the people that I like. I love those books, but you don't connect the same way as when you read something about someone your age going through very similar life sections. So Twilight was the first book I read about a teenage girl falling in love. It was the first romance that I read. Yep. And I mean, I don't, yeah, you could say like Romeo and Juliet, but that's a sad excuse for a romance novel. There's no happy ending. It's a tragedy. There's no witty dialogue. There's no fun banter. There's nothing except sadness and angst. And they're 13. So Twilight, I connected on such an intense level for the first time because I felt like Bella. You can slip into Bella so easily, and it's not because she's a non-character. It's because she's the person that's invisible in high school. And she's like the quiet girl. And she's the one who like stays home and reads her books on the weekends, you know? And that was me. And she's the one that thinks that like no one's gonna notice her, especially this really attractive, like, I don't want to say popular because it's N-word popular, but everyone likes him. Everyone has a crush on him because he's so hot. Yeah. I think that's what it is.
They're also like intrigued enamored about him.
Yes. Yes. So it was complete wish fulfillment to see her be the one that was singled out. And that's like the little dream of all of us quiet girls who read and are weird in high school. It's like that boy we have a crush on is going to notice us. And he notices her so hard. So hard.
So hard.
All right. So moving through Twilight here, I obviously immediately, I read this during my lunch hours. As soon as I was done, I went back to Target. I picked up New Moon. I picked up Eclipse after that. And we're going to do separate episodes for those books. So we're not going to dig into our thoughts specifically on those right now. But Breaking Dawn came out on my 18th birthday, and then I went to college, and I didn't bring the books because I wanted to have a set at home. So once I got to college, I bought another set of Twilight books. And I had my college set and my home set. And one of my 3 roommates was also a big reader. So she had just read all the Twilight books. So we were like, oh my God, Twilight. And my 2 other roommates, I convinced to read the books because the movie was coming and we were all going to go to it together.
See, that's where so many people had invited me to go see the film. Like Abby wanted me to go see it, and hold for playing. Abby wanted me to go see it. My like Girl Scout troop wanted me to go see it. I was a Girl Scout like all through my school years up until high school, and they were gonna go see it with like their moms, but I hadn't read it, and in my mind I knew that I wanted to read the books before I went to go see the movie. So I guess we can probably move into the trailer because I can talk about how, because my timeline is so different because I didn't read them until Christmas vacation of 2008. So by the time the movie was out of theaters, I had just started reading. I plowed through them.
So question, did you see the trailer before you read the books?
I did. And I think that's when all the other questions you have in this, it's funny because you're like, ew, no, Robert, ew.
Oh, wait, excuse me. Spoilers. Spoilers.
Okay. So
take that part out. Take that part out.
We're cutting that out.
Jake, that little funny that part with what I thought of Edward.
So in Abby's like in Abby's campaign to make me read Twilight, she had showed me the trailer. And I remember, like, I was, like, sitting in her room on her bed, and she's, like, at her desk. She's like, wait, I have to show you this. And she shows me the trailer. And my first thought was, like, hey, that's Cedric Diggory. And she's like, yeah. And, like, she was so excited because she really wanted me to like it. And I was like, yeah, I want to read it. She goes, so are you going to read it now? And I'm like, yeah, I want to read it. I just need the book.
That's how we all were. Like, are you going to read it?
Yes.
You have to read it. Read it right now.
Her mom and her sister were in line to borrow her books, so I couldn't borrow her books. I had to wait for my mom to get them for me.
Oh, well. Yeah. So
Did you watch the trailer?
Okay, I didn't watch the trailer until after I read the first book, or maybe I read all of them. I can't remember. Yeah, I think I might have read all of them because I have a lot of self-restraint when it comes to that because I don't want to spoil my book visions. But in between that time, so my family does not read. My mom very, very seldom reads, but I was so convincing in that she had to read this book that I was obsessed with. Because once I finished these books, you know what I did next? I read these books again. I just kept reading them on a loop. And that's why I had to get my college set. Because I was like, okay, I'm ready to reread Eclipse. I'm ready to read Breaking Dawn for like the 50th time. Breaking Dawn, I just finished it and read it right again right after. Like, the only one I didn't reread, and it took me like 6 months to reread New Moon. But everything else, on a loop. And I started listening to Twilight podcasts, and they were talking about other YA novels. And I started reading Stephanie Meyer's blog. Stephanie Meyer recommended The Hunger Games. Stephanie Meyer recommended The Immortal Instruments, City of Glass, which she blurbed. And we all know that I am deeply entrenched in those fandoms as well. And it was by reading all these books that I discovered more YA books. I discovered the YA section. And thus wanted to talk about books with people, and thus went eventually to the internet, but that's in the future. Anyway, okay, so we see the trailer. Do you remember your initial thoughts? We're gonna watch it together right now because it brings back so much just hearing it and seeing it. I remember we watched it like in 2016 together, and we're like, oh my god. So I'm gonna play it. I guarantee even the sounds are gonna be like, oh. Ready?
How old are you?
17.
How long have you been 17?
Oh my god. The editing.
A while.
With those like negative flashes.
The deer.
When you can
Wrong,
live, when you
Edward.
can live
She's
forever.
not one of us.
Oh my god, that line from Emmett.
That was deleted scene.
That bothered the shit out of me. She's not one of us.
I remember this.
Yes, that gave me the chills. Oh my god, the look. From the world.
I'm not scared of you.
You really shouldn't have said that.
Ooh. I thought it was so cute. Twinkly Twilight, twinkly.
12:08. It didn't come out.
12:08.
It came out 11. They changed the date. They changed the date. They
It got
bumped up
changed
to
because of-
11/21/08. I think.
Yeah, well, it got changed, I think, because of Harry Potter and James Bond.
I watched that trailer about 10 million gajillion million gajillion times. And then they released the scene on Apple of the I know what you are. That's what it was. I know what you are. And like, how long have you been 17? And it had this crazy cinematography where they were like circling around them and cutting a million different shots. We all know the scene. And I was worried. I was worried. My initial thought when I saw that trailer was like, that's not Edward. Like, I had such a clear vision of who Edward was in my head that it took me a little bit to acclimate to Rob. Like, I love him now. I don't know if I love him as Edward 100%, but I love him. And I think he is like the look of Edward. But when I read these books, I was picturing like an amalgamation of like two guys in high school that I had crushes on. Because I slipped myself right into Bella. Like, I was Bella. This was my high school experience. That's why the book's so beautiful.
I still never do that. Like, I still never put myself in a book. It's very hard for me to do that. So when I saw the trailer, I was like, immediately I always thought Rob was handsome because I had a huge crush on him as Cedric Diggory. So I was so happy to see him in this one. And because I had already seen the trailer and like every single trailer pretty much from that point on, like, he was my Edward because I didn't read them before.
Yeah.
But I was like, yay, Cedric Diggory.
Yeah, so I never, like, again, I guess it's because I didn't like the character. I need to, like someone's personality before I think that they're attractive a lot of times. So, like, Cedric Diggory wasn't that great to me. And so I never really thought that Rob was cute. And then after this, and after Rob started doing all these interviews, I thought he was so funny and so weird. And I loved him. But in the beginning, I was like, no! How could they cast him? How could they cast Kay Stewart instead of me? No, I didn't think they would cast me, but I was just like, that's not what she looks like. But I don't even think I was aware of how I was kind of like picturing a version of myself as Bella at the time. So that was like,
with brown hair.
Yeah, I mean, my hair was like dark blonde, so it was
That's true.
brown enough. It was brown enough to slip in there. So what were your opinions of the movie from the trailer? Like, did you think this was going to be great, or were you worried? Well, you probably weren't worried because you weren't invested in the books yet.
Yeah, I wasn't invested. I just was like, yeah, that's really cool. Like, I'm excited. I'll watch it. And I was pretty neutral to it. Like, I didn't think it looked silly. I didn't think, that it was like romantic, you know. I just like wanted to read the books and get the hype. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, I just was intrigued and I thought he was cute and I was like, yeah, let's read this.
Yeah.
What about you?
So I was a little worried. So I'm watching this from the perspective of a girl freshly enrolled in film school. Like, I am now a film major, and I'm very conscious of all these film people's thoughts around me. At the time of the trailer, I'm just super excited. But as we got closer and closer to the movie, I was like, this has to be good. This has to be good. Like, I felt all this pressure on it, and I had convinced all of my roommates who hadn't read it, and anyone I befriended at all, I was like, Twilight is amazing. You have to read it. Oh my God, it's the best thing. And there's a movie, and I checked like the websites every morning and listened to the podcast every week, and like every new interview, I was like, oh my God, look at this, tweeting about this and tweeting about that. The Hot Topic merch came, and I was like, oh my God, I have to buy. Like, I only bought one t-shirt because I was a poor college student, but I got merch. And I remember the mall tour was coming to Boston, and I really wanted to go, but I didn't want to go by myself, and I would have to miss
I can't
class.
believe you didn't go. It's iconic.
I was watching the other ones happen, and there were so many people going to them. Like, so it would be a big hassle because it wasn't actually in the city. I would have to find transportation there through like the public transport because I was at school without a car, and I was only wanting to do that with a roommate with me. Like, I couldn't pay for a cab. It would be like way too expensive. So my roommate though wasn't willing to miss class for the mall. So I didn't go, and I missed these crazy mall experiences where we got to meet the cast, I guess, and get a picture with them. Is that what happened there? I don't even know what happened. I just remember
that's what happened.
I just remember full of people on those videos. Like,
and I watched the videos, you know, after the fact, after like I fully became like an obsessive teen.
Yes.
And I was just like, I want to be there.
You went to so many Twilight things.
I
The
did.
mall was like
The-
so.
like, if you think about it, like, I
Happy.
missed most of this experience. Like, I missed, like, I didn't see Twilight in the theaters. Like, I got obsessed with it once everyone was like, yeah, I'm kind of, like, cool with it now, you know? Like,
I think you made up for
Breaking
it
Dawn
in
came-
those times, though, right?
I definitely did. I definitely did. But, like, people were, like, already so done with it after the first movie had come out because either, like, it didn't live up to their expectations or they were just done with the hype.
Maybe I should take us through the movie coming out, and then
Yeah.
we'll pick up with where you really got obsessed here. So, the first movie, I got the tickets for all my roommates way ahead of time because obviously we were going on opening night. We weren't going to go at midnight because everyone had class, so we went to like the 8 o'clock show on Friday the 21st, and I had my Twilight gear on. Oh yeah, I also bought the cuff, the Cullen Crest
yes.
cuff that Edward wears, and I was wearing that. And my roommate had a Twilight shirt. I got her a Twilight shirt, the one that liked to read, who had already read Twilight, so we could be wearing them together. And my other two roommates were like more skeptical. One had finished it and one was still reading it in line. We got there 3 hours early because Twilight was already breaking all these like pre-order ticket records. I feel like everyone was getting in line super early and buying midnight tickets. Everyone was so excited. And so we got there 3 hours early, waited on this giant line. We were like the fifth people in line though. Like we were there early for this Boston movie theater. And I remember watching the movie and knowing that it wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. But I also wanted it to be good. Like I wanted to defend it in every way, shape, or form because I've been following the creation of this film for months and seeing all the work that went into it. So when one of my roommates were like, it wasn't that good, I'm like, Catherine Hardwicke actually has been working on the scene and really working really hard to please the fans and this and this and this and this. And I would come to its defense over and over and over again. And it was like only $1 million budget and they had this much time to make it and blah, 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 blah. I would constantly come to its defense. So when in film class, they used to start the class like, did anyone see any of the new movies this weekend? I didn't actually raise my hand and say Twilight because I didn't want people to make fun of me. But come New Moon, I did raise my hand. But yeah, everyone was making fun of it because teenage girls were obsessed with it and it was getting so much hype and people love to shit on something that a lot of people are excited about because they don't see. The thing is, it's not for everyone, but the people it is for, it's really making an impact on them. That's why they're so excited. So just leave them alone and let them like it is the thing that I feel like it took a lot of people a lot of time. And still there's people that love to like shit on people for liking stuff. Yeah. And it's just,
I think like we are products of that, of like people loving something so much that impacts their life so greatly that like it steers us in a way that we wouldn't have gone, you know, if it weren't for certain types of media. So people need to calm down. What were your thoughts about K-Stu as Bella?
Yeah, after the movie, the thing about the movie is when I read the book, they were funny. They had like banter that wasn't so serious all the time. So when they're like, so the lion fell in love with the lamb, I didn't picture it like, so the lion fell in love with the lamb. I was like, they were smiling and be like, so the lion fell in love with the lamb. And she was like, what a stupid lamb. But they were like, what a stupid lamb. What a sick, masochistic lion. Like, they were the most dramatic I've ever seen in my life. And because I'm so into comedy and, like, rom-coms and such, I casted this whole thing in my head as a much lighter, more fun book, and all their conversations had some humor to it. When while there is humor, and I think Stephanie Meyer did mean for there to be humor, and while sometimes there's humor with K-Stew and R-Pats, a lot of times they play it very, very life or death. And you gotta laugh. You gotta laugh at that sometimes. And that's why it's a lot of fun to watch these movies tongue in cheek. Like, we love it, but it's fun to laugh at it sometimes, because it does take itself very seriously in a situation where when they're saying these words very seriously, it can be very funny because it's very melodramatic.
Yes, it is.
But teenagers are
I they really are, especially like ones that are, you know, reading Jane Austen and are listening to Claire de Lune. Like,
yes,
these guys are
those are some pretentious teens.
Yeah. I remember, I mean, I was a huge movie buff because my parents had us watching so many different films when we were younger. And so I had seen Kristen Stewart a bunch. Like, Panic Room was actually one of my favorite movies, even though it was so intense, with Jodie Foster. And that was her first role, I think. And she was so young. And I remember my mom, at that time, you know, I didn't know the difference between, like, you know, high femme and masculine. And I always thought, like, she wasn't, like, such a girly girl. And, you know, Bella is not really a girly girl, but I always thought she was, like, more masculine than she was feminine. So I was like, oh, okay, like, I'm excited to see her in this role. But I think it was a little different of a role for her to do, because she had done... I think the only other movie I had seen her in was
Zarthura.
That Jumanji movie.
Zarthura.
Yeah. And, so I was just like, I knew of her, and I was like, okay, I'm interested to see, like, what she does in this, like, high school teen romance film.
Yeah.
Because I thought she was such a great actress, like a little like child actress.
Yeah. In the movie, I feel like we all came out of it being like blinking and biting our lips and being like, Edward. That's not how we pictured Bella when we read the book. She played it with her own specific K-Stew quirks, and we grow to love them. Like, again, it grows to be, like, a thing we love. We love to laugh and love to, like, love K-Stew's different quirks. But when you love something so much, you project it so clearly in your brain, and it's harder to accept everything at first. And then, the next day, obviously, I went to go see the movie again. I went with my one roommate who also really loved Twilight. And I didn't see it a million times because poor college student. So I saw it twice. And I thought that was a lot. And I think maybe when I went home with my family, I went one more time with Olivia, my sister. And she, after this, is when I got her to read New Moon, because she thought Edward Cullen was so fucking hot. And so she was
she say it that
Twilight.
way.
That is how she said it. And she read New Moon. Yes, she was in an in-school suspension and she was stuck in a room all day, but she read a book.
Wow.
And I was really proud of her.
Oh. So as soon as the movie had come out, I remember I was at church and Abby, it was like Sunday, she hadn't seen it yet, and she was going with another friend of hers to go watch the movie, because I had already told her, I'm like, I'm not going to see this movie before I read it. And she was so excited to go see it, and then the next day at school, like, she was like, yeah, it wasn't the best. And from that point on, like, her obsession and her enthusiasm had really dwindled. And so by the time I had read it, you know, I was reading it and I was, you know, texting her and telling her all of my thoughts and opinions. Like, she was not the same person who loved Twilight
That's
before
so
the movie.
sad. And that's what
It's
happened
so
to a lot of
sad.
normals. A lot of the normals.
Yes, normals.
Like the obsession lasted up to the movie, or it lasted like up till a little before New Moon came out, and they were like, quote, growing out of it, and it was so condescending when they would say it to me, because I was still obsessed with it and just in love with everything about it. And even though I could accept that like the movie wasn't amazing, like I could admit it, I still had that love for it because I know how much love went into it. And I was watching all the behind the scenes and like listening to all the creators talk about making the film, and like really, really getting into Catherine Hardwicke, because I thought it was so cool that this woman was directing such a big film, because you never saw women in directors' roles for these big headliner films. And I was obviously, again, I was in film school. I thought at the time that I wanted to be a director because I didn't think I could be a writer. And it was Twilight that started to change my mind on that. I was like, the first time I read Twilight, or maybe it was the second time I read Twilight when I was in college, because the first time it was the summer and I wasn't thinking so much about writing. But I was starting to think that I could write a book for the first time, because I had, again, never seen a book about a girl like me. And I was like, I could do this, and I think I can do this in a way that people would really like. I could write a book about like a girl going into college, or a girl who's like falling in love, because that's the stuff I love to read, and I think I could finish that. I never thought I would have the capability to finish an entire book. So when I came into film school, I was like, I want to try screenwriting because that's shorter. And I think I could finish that. But yeah, Twilight completely changed my mindset on that, and that's so powerful, to believe that you can do something that you once thought was like you were incapable of, and that, but you love that. You know, if there's something that you think you admire so much but you think you could never do it, and then all of a sudden you think you can, it's such a big mind shift.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely incredible.
Natasha,
Yes.
Christmas comes. Where do you get the DVD? Because I don't know if you've heard Natasha talk about this before. She watched it every day for a year. So when does this start? How does this happen?
So I had been begging. I wanted the books before the movie came out, and I had been begging my mom. At this time in my life, this is when like all the, we'll talk about this more, but like this is in my life where everything just started like shit hitting the fan, and like my dad wasn't going to work. We were losing money, like we were losing the business. He was like the only breadwinner, so we didn't have a lot of money, and you know, I was a freshman in high school, so she was just waiting for like a paycheck to come through to be able to get me the novels. So she didn't get me the books until Christmas. I remember we didn't put up a Christmas tree that year, and we came down for Christmas Day, and there's like a few presents out in the middle, and she had wrapped every single one. Why is this making me cry?
Oh,
Sorry.
it's okay.
She had wrapped every single one of the Twilight books and had written in them, and I was so excited, and I started reading it like that night, and I remember like going to like my family Christmas and like reading them in the car, and I was so excited to have this experience. Sorry. So I blazed through like every single one of the novels like during those 2 weeks, and I remember like coming back to school and like wanting to talk about it with everyone, because I hadn't seen anyone, and like everyone else had like had that experience, and I wanted to like just talk about the books and Edward and everything. And I had called Abby, and we had discussed it, and Abby was trying so desperately
to
she's
match
like,
your
you have
enthusiasm.
to see the movie now. Yeah, but she's like, you have to see the movie now. I need to know your thoughts on the movie, because like, you know, she came out of it so disappointed, and she had told me, she's like, watch all of the scenes on iTunes. So I had like watched all the scenes on iTunes. I had watched every little like piece of content that was out. I watched all the trailers. Like the 2 weeks of Christmas was just a masterclass
Twilight.
in like in the Twilight fandom. And I was trying, and I remember like this is the first time in my life where like I tried to watch a movie illegally, and like I had almost succeeded. I think I watched the first 30 minutes and then like the site closed it down.
Oh no.
Yeah, so I had only seen like the first half of the film.
Oh my
and then I had to I didn't want to like try to do it again because I was way too afraid of like what would happen if like the FBI was going to come to my house. And and then the DVD release. So I didn't see the movie in theater, and then finally the DVD came out like March, which was like around my birthday.
The following year. Gosh, in college.
What do you remember about the?
Oh, go ahead.
Go on.
I was just going to
go
say,
on.
in college, it was before streamers, so the time that you're talking about, too. So everyone
yeah.
has to remember, there were no streamers. Netflix was you order a DVD and it comes in the mail. So it wasn't streaming, and it was freshman year. So 2008 is when different networks finally started putting some of their shows up online. So, like, Lost, every season went up in preparation for the 5th season coming so that people could catch up. And that was so cool to be able to watch episodes online. And then Survivor started doing it, and ABC started doing it.
On the network.
All on their website, they had the ability to watch episodes. So it was a game changer, but there were no movies. There was no movies online. And that's when I first learned about all these different sites that were like illegal that were having all the movies. And when you're in college and you don't have any money, like that's the way you're watching movies a lot of time. And like same, I guess, with you trying to watch Twilight, and you would just like try all these different links, and like occasionally you would find one that like where the sound was actually in sync with the picture. And like you'd pause it and like wait 10 minutes so that it would load and stop like buffering every 5 seconds, because like a lot of times we'd like pause every second because it wasn't loaded all the way, so you'd like let it load. Oh my god, what a time. Anyway, that was like the cusp of online streaming. It was just starting, and no movies. Anyway, okay, so the DVD release. By the time the DVD was released, all my roommates were kind of over Twilight, and I was just the Twilight obsessed girl. And I think for Christmas, one of my roommates had gotten me a big Hot Topic poster of Edward. Is the one where he's like this, like, and he's like making that constipated face and looking at the camera with his first Twilight picture makeup where his face is super, super white and he looks super mean. You know the one. And so we had that on the wall, and she got me a tote bag that said, "You are my life now." Yeah, and my background on my computer was Edward Cullen. I had the shirt that just said like Twilight and had Edward's eyes, and it was like the Twilight logo, and it had like Edward's eyes underneath it, and I thought it was super cool. And on the back, I think it said like, "And so the lion fell in love with the lamb." And I thought it was like the perfect like subtle Twilight shirt. And I wore it on the day it came out, obviously. But yeah, I have my this is the not so subtle Twilight shirt I have, because for Eclipse there was no subtle Twilight shirt. And
there really wasn't.
There's just a full cartoon of Edward, and it says Edward in big letters going up the side. Yeah, and for New Moon, there was no subtle one either. I literally had to get the poster on a t-shirt. Oops. I literally had to get a poster on a t-shirt.
That, the merch stuff, so like, after I read them, I was buying everything. I was trying to buy everything. And I remember seeing everyone in those black Hot Topic shirts. I was like, I don't want those. Everyone has them. I want something different. And I had went on Zazzle and Cafe Express, and I had got all those like
Cecil?
fan made like quote t-shirts.
Yep.
Like they're all so like I have so many pictures of them. Like I
They're
have
so like trashy looking, some of these t-shirts that were on those sites.
I had like weird ass sayings on them, like Robsessed.
Oh yeah, I've seen this.
Yeah, like shh, I'm talking about Edward, don't speak to me. Like I had like 7 or 10 of these shirts, okay? And they all had these weird because
What
I
a
had one for every
random
day of the
number.
week. Because I would wear them every single day at school. I was the Twilight girl. And
You
it was
were
just,
so embarrassing with the shirts, probably.
I was, but like I tried in my mind, I thought I was fashion forward because I would pair them with like different cardigans and like different color pants. And I was like, see, everyone just wears these with jeans and I'm going to wear them with like skirts and things and like make them fashion.
I'm gonna make Robsessed fashion.
Okay, but did you go to the midnight DVD release?
No, I wasn't gonna go. See, this is the part of my life I wasn't brave enough to do anything by myself, so I wasn't gonna go with no one in Boston to this release. And like my roommates weren't over it. They were like, we've grown out of that phase. It had been 6 months, so it's like, really? You're too old for this now, you 18-year-olds. And so I got the DVD at the store the day it came out, and I watched it on my computer in my little bunk bed. And I think we talked about watching it, like me and my one roommate who really liked the books a lot, but she was busy, so watched it by myself.
I went to the midnight DVD release.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I mean, there were midnight DVD releases, so you needed to get on
It
that because
was
you missed the
packed.
movie. Yeah.
I did, yeah. It was packed. Abby's mom dropped us off at Borders, and we waited in line. We played Twilight trivia. There were like, I remember seeing like really young children there dressed up as Edward and Bella, and I was like, why are they allowed to watch this? And and we got the Borders like exclusive edition, like with the hard like back, and we had the multiple
Rip Borders.
DVDs. Yes, and we watched it. I watched it that night because her mom had picked us up then, and then dropped me back off at my house, and then I was like, "Mom, we're watching this now." And
Did your mom watch it with you the first time?
yeah, so my mom was very interested because I was so obsessed with the books.
Yeah.
Because when I was reading them during Christmas, I had a lot of emotions, and there was like that point in New Moon where Edward leaves, and I just had a full mental breakdown and literally like curled up in her lap as she like rocked me.
Aww.
So she was there with me. She just didn't read them.
Mm-hmm.
And so like when the DVD came out and we were watching it, she's like, I need to know. And I remember every time a DVD came out, like I would sit there with her and I would watch it, but we would pause it so much because I would be explaining everything that that happened in the book and why like this scene wasn't supposed to be like this.
Yeah. Wasn't exactly right.
Yeah. So it was so fun for me to be able to kind of teach someone about the story in that like first viewing experience, and she was all game for it. Like she just like loved seeing me being so like enthusiastic, and I made her watch all the behind the scenes, but at that point she was like, okay, but she still let me because it was like a weekend.
Mm-hmm. Did she like it, or was she just like, oh, this is what
She
you
did.
like? Oh, good.
Yeah,
Enjoyed it.
She did. She loves romance, or she loved romance, and she just didn't understand why I was so obsessive about it.
Yeah. I remember when my mom was reading the books, because she So my mom read the books too, not just Olivia. And she called me late or early in the morning, and she was like, I haven't been able to stop reading this book. I've been up all night. And she's talking about Breaking Dawn. And I was like, oh my God, this is so exciting. What part are you at? What's happening? And it was so cool to be able to do that, because I had never done that with my mom. I always would finish a book and come and tell her the entire plot.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So she would just like know everything that would happen, so I could also then talk about what I thought about the plot. Because you got to give the baseline there. And so I think it wasn't until 2010 that like everyone I know had been like over Twilight, and I was still reading tons of books and wanted to talk about it with everyone. And I was like, what if I talked about books on the internet? What if I found friends over there? But okay, let's walk through here. So we're gonna take you through like exactly why these made such a big impact, because there's like direct moments that changed everything. And I think it's important to know before we get to like our last big Twilight moment that we have on our little outline today, because that's why it's made such an impact. Like, so for me, I mean, this is why I knew young adult books existed. This is why I started reading all my favorite books. This is why I thought I could write a book. This is like why I started listening. This is why I went to YouTube. So the first time I went to YouTube was to see a Hillywood parody that I heard them talking about on one of my Twilight podcasts I listened to. And so I was like, oh my God, I gotta see this parody they're talking about. It was amazing. And then I obviously subscribed to Hillywood and started exploring YouTube more, because at that time it was still like the YouTube as videos of cats time. You know, I didn't know about vloggers. And after the Hillywood parody, I was already making music videos with Olivia, and I was like, I want to make big videos like this. Like, I could do this. I could direct something like this. And I also found Alex Reed's Twilight, and that he was reading Twilight and making fun of it. We talked about this in Fangirl Tea Time. And so I started watching vloggers I found through Alex, and that's how I knew that vlogging existed. And that's why I started thinking I should make videos about books on the internet. That's why I started a book-based YouTube channel. And that's why that became my career for I built a career out of talking about books because of Twilight. And then I started thinking about writing my own book because of Twilight. And I wanted to be a writer, and now I'm an author. And it is insane to me, like, how it all cruxed on this one book. And everything rippled out from there. Like, okay, even going to London, the vloggers I was watching in the very beginning lived in London. And I was like, if I'm going to study abroad, maybe I should go to London. And then I went to London because of these vloggers I found because of Twilight, and it changed my entire life. And I wrote my first book about London. You know, like, it's so insane how far it ripples. And like, so Twilight was my ripple. Twilight was like my butterfly effect on my entire life there. Okay. Yeah. So Natasha, walk us through your little steps here.
I mean, I think like I am who I am because of Twilight. Like we both can say this. But it's what got me reading, and from that point on, I was always chasing that feeling of how I felt the reading high of after I finished the book, and how much I was so enamored with this like romance relationship, and I wanted to read more books where I could find that feeling, and it was intoxicating.
It is. It's an
I think
addiction, that
it's crazy
feeling, like the love
Yeah.
and enthusiasm that you get for something like that, and you just don't expect it
Yeah.
to come so hard.
Yeah, and wait, it's the catalyst that brought me to the internet. So it's what I didn't have any type of social media. I think I got Facebook like in 2008. But everyone had scared me about MySpace, so I never got MySpace. Like all those like creepy email chains were like, "Don't get MySpace. All of this can
Oh my
happen."
God. If you were
Yeah,
in
I
middle
had
school
all-
when I was in middle school, MySpace was just like everyone had it. It was the shit. You missed it by like 3 years.
Everyone had MySpace, and then I like in I was in middle school, but I just never did it because I was too good. I was too goody two shoes. But I got Twitter in 2008, and Twitter was my first social media where there wasn't anyone that I knew that I was following. Like I was following.
Yeah.
I got it because I wanted to keep up with the
Following
fan sites.
celebrities and stuff. Oh, and fan sites.
Celebrities, yeah. Because at that point, after Christmas break, like I needed to know everything that happened with the films. Like I was obsessively following the fan sites. I was checking for updates. I wanted to build my own fan site. I in high school I built 2 websites, failed.
What were
And
their
I
names?
started.
What were they called?
Well, one was called Moonless Night.
Oh,
that was my
yeah, that was
old
your handle.
Twitter handle.
Mhm.
Yes, because my life was like a moonless night, is a quote from Twilight. My life was like a moonless night until you came into my life. And then I think I built this like other site where there was this website called Twilight Confessions, and people could anonymously type in their Twilight, like their weird Twilight confessions. And I wanted to do something like that. So I had built a website similar to that where people were just like typing in things to do with Twilight. Like I remember one being like, I keep saying like, I remember this girl was saying how she had dropped her keys in a puddle as she was getting into her car, and she was so sad because Edward wasn't there to pick them up. No.
What an iconic moment in Twilight, the book.
Yeah, so all during high school, like I just took those 4 years and I really got to learn how to code, how to make sites. I started reading fan fiction, and fan fiction honestly was probably another huge catalyst, because that's when I thought, okay, I could be writing my own stories, and I did. I started writing stories about the cast. And I was so obsessed with the fact.
Can you tell us like
these?
Can you tell us, before you move on from your stories, can you tell us like what the
Yeah.
plot was to one of your stories, like your favorite one?
Okay, I never really wrote. I was so weird about this. I didn't love reading fan fiction if it was actually inside like the Twilight world. I loved reading alternate universe fan fiction where it was just the characters put in a different kind of like what E.L. James did with
That's exactly what I was thinking. 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah, 50 Shades of Grey. And I had wrote fan fiction about how did I tell you this recently? How I had rented, no, I told Taya, how my family had rented a beach house, and next door, like all the Twilight cast were renting that house because they were filming like the next movie. And
They were filming the movie
I had,
there.
Yes, it was like at La Push, and it was like, it was so funny because not so fun. The story goes of how I like started becoming friends with like Kellen Lutz and Robert Pattinson, and how they would bring me into the film. Anyways, that was one of my fan fictions.
Oh my god, that's great. Do you still have it?
It was on one of my crashed computers a while ago.
Oh my god.
I still have the computer, so if I can get it off the hard drive.
Put it on the
then-
Patreon.
God.
No, we could read it on Fangirl Tea Time, like an excerpt.
Oh yeah, we
Yeah.
definitely could.
Yeah.
Did you write like fan fiction or little stories back then?
I wrote stories, but I didn't write any fan fiction. So I was in writing courses, so I was writing all the time, and I remember though like learning stuff from the way that Stephanie Meyer wrote and the way that her writing made me feel, and I would try to take what I learned from her and put it into my stories.
Would you like open the book and then like you would kind of see how she wrote it and then you would kind of like write it that way?
No,
that's what I would do. I would get the book.
I have a very visual memory, so I would just like remember sentences. Like I could open a book and tell you where a sentence is on a page and where it is. Like I could find it because I like remember it like photographically, like that when I read with my eyeballs. So I would just remember certain details and why it made me feel so close to the character, and I would be like, how do I put that into what I'm writing? And I remember, so my roommate who loved to read would always read my stories, and she really liked them, and it would always give me like all this great feedback. And this one time she was like, this makes me feel like when I read Twilight, like this is something that I feel like I would see in Twilight. And I was like, oh my God, that is the biggest compliment that you could give me. Thank you. Yeah, she's like, yeah, little details like this and like that you relate to so much are why that book is so special. There's things that people haven't talked about that you feel, and you've never heard it articulated on a page. And that's what makes Twilight so special. It's like there is a large group of us that hadn't seen these feelings and these different emotions and stuff put on a page before. And it's so validating to have that experience that someone else is obviously feeling and going through the same thing. And that's why we connect with any book that you really, really connect with. They see something, you see something of yourself in there that you've never seen anyone else articulate that they also feel.
I think the biggest thing that Twilight gave me was my love for the film industry and how movies were made and how you could be involved with them. And I know I just totally took it back on track, but I remember seeing, do you remember this? The fan site owners, like people like the ladies who run Twilight Lexicon, Letters to Twilight, like His Golden Eyes, all of those women were invited to the set of the Twilight films. And I was so jealous. I wanted to be that person so bad. I mean, do you remember, like, there was a whole contest for someone to make a music video to go to the set of New Moon, and I think we all tried to do it.
Yeah. I mean, mine wasn't a music video. It was like, make a video about yourself and you'll win a trip to the New Moon set. I made that video. I got a passport just in case I won.
Oh my God. Amazing.
I was like, Mom, I need a passport. I might need to go to Canada if I win this contest. I'm not missing this because I don't have a passport.
Yeah, and that's why like I tried to chase that. Like I really wanted my own website, and because I was too late in the game and I was too young. But I did create a podcast literally when I was a junior in high school. I was listening to, because at that point, you know, a lot of my high school friends, because we were the ones that, you know, that stayed. You and Christine and I, we were the ones that like followed Twilight until this point, and there weren't a lot of people left at school where we could have a kinship with them.
Yes, like be as
Twilight.
enthusiastic as we wanted to be. There was no one around that was going to tolerate that and be as enthusiastic as we were. And if they're not matching you, it starts to feel condescending, like we've talked about.
And I was finding those people on Twitter and going to conventions. That was the first time where I was networking, and I was in freaking high school, and these girls that I had met online, I was like, let's make a podcast. Like we already do these like long Skype sessions where I made my first internet friends in high school with grown women. And I produced the whole thing. I started editing. Like it was a thing that got me, like after school we would record for like 2 hours, and then I would edit in GarageBand, and then I would put it up. It was called Twi Nerds United. And Christine was listening to podcasts. I was listening to like a few Twilight podcasts. The main one was Twigasm, which was a fan fiction podcast, which actually Christina Hobbs of Christina Lauren was one of the main hosts.
Oh my God. That's so crazy. I didn't know that.
And that's how, that's how I found her fanfic before the fan, but I was following them all on Twitter, and they were like, we're starting a podcast, and their podcast was hilarious. Like, I was obsessed with it. And then they stopped after, I think, like a year or so. I got to tell Christina this because I was 16 years old listening to their very filthy, raunchy Twigasm podcast.
I was listening to much more wholesome Twilight content. I feel like I was listening to Imprint, which was some of the MuggleCast hosts were also doing a Twilight podcast, and I loved Imprint. And I was listening to Bite Club, which was these women who have a new wine every time that they're recording, and they talk about the wine, and they talk about like something vampire related, and it was all based off of their love of Twilight, and they would read a new book every month, and The Mortal Instruments was one of their books. And a lot of the books that I started reading of young adult were the books that they were reading as their book of the month. And that's how I really ended up going to the YA section all the time, and then just finding books on my own through like, you know, the chain of different series and different following these other authors on Twitter and getting into that world. And it was once I had read like 20 books and I didn't have someone to like explode and talk about them all with, that I set up my camera for the first time on me, because I was making music videos. I never spoke on camera. I didn't have the confidence to think that anyone would want to listen to me on camera. And I had a pile of books behind me, and my slogan was like, finish Twilight and want something else non-boring to read. Like, I said non-boring, and I thought that was so funny. Like, looking for something non-boring to read, I'm here to help. And in my first vlog, I was talking about the Hunger Games, but I was also just like, I showed all the books I had read in the past couple months, and I was like, which one? I gave a little synopsis of all of them. I remember I held up like City of Bones, and I was like, this is like good, but like the next book is way better. I sound so annoying too. I can't stand my voice in that. But Twilight made me have the confidence to step in front of a camera at all and start vlogging. And I loved it so much, and I found so many friends through that venture. So I started this originally on my comedy channel, Poland Bananas 20, and then I didn't want people who liked music videos to unsubscribe, so I created a new channel called Poland Bananas Books. And I've told this story a million times, but I don't know if you've heard it. So I, at the time, was like, I'll be lucky if I ever get 500 subscribers on this channel. And I think Poem Bananas 20 maybe had like 5,000 to like, yeah, it's probably around 5,000, because I didn't hit 10,000 subscribers till I graduated college. And in 2013 or 14, I want to say, it passed Poland Bananas 20 in subscribers. And 2012, 2011 is when my channel really started to grow, because 2010 is when I created Poland Bananas Books, and 2011 is when I studied abroad and I started having content weekly to post. And
that was like all during like Twilight.
It was all during Twilight.
Too.
Yeah, I missed I missed like the big Twilight era. Like, I wasn't vlogging at that time. I had like little weird Twilight videos I had done where I like lip sunk to like, I know what you are. like I wasn't talking about it, but I did do an Eclipse review right after I watched Eclipse. Like I had made the channel already, and I have that up, and I have a host review of the host. I think I had read it the second time or something. But anyway, it was at 40,000 subscribers that the book channel passed Poland Bananas 20, my comedy channel, and it was just so surreal because so many people like books. and like I found all these people because of Twilight, and now so many of my close friends are because of the book channel. Like everything has come out of that channel, and it's hard to kind of encompass it in a little paragraph here how much of my life has come out of that.
That's what I'm like. I keep trying to figure out. I think like the root of it is the people that I networked with, the people that I met because I was so obsessed with fan sites were the people that helped me with my opportunities and my jobs later in life. Because I started writing on Page to Premiere after like Breaking Dawn had come out, because I remember talking to Amy, who is one of my oldest friends, and she's the one who took us to Forks that we talked about in our first episode. We'll have her on this podcast at some point, but I met her at my first Twilight convention, and I do the same thing now where like I see someone, I'm like, that person looks interesting, I want to be friends with them. And I did that with Amy because she like had walked in. She was like this tall, like redheaded goddess. And I thought she was so cool, and she looked like she knew exactly what she was doing and where she wanted to be. And I saw her like interact with Peter Facinelli and Kellen Lutz, and I was like, who are you? I want to be friends. And I found her literally on Twitter because I was stalking people from the convention and trying to figure out who all these people were that I had first met at my 16th birthday in 2009. And she was the one to get me on Page to Premiere, and that was technically my first like big job, because that was a job where I met Christine. That was a job where I had interviewed people on the red carpet. I got to go to the host premiere and interview people at the press junket, which is like the big press day before the premiere. I got to go to the premiere. It wasn't my first premiere. My first premiere was Breaking Dawn Part 1. But this was the host was the first premiere that I was working as press. And yes, I mean, all of that started because I was so obsessed and I wanted to be involved with the movies in some sort of way, and I didn't know how to do it, and I was able to do it because of sheer will.
Yeah, I mean, when you love something so much, you find a way to be a part of it any way you want, any way you can. And I want to circle this back around. So there's a lot more to fill in with the other books and the other movies that I think we'll do different episodes for. But in 2018, the 20-year anniversary, no, 10-year, it has been 20 years since 2008. Oh my God. The 10-year anniversary of the Twilight movie was happening, and they were doing a special event in LA, and Stephenie Meyer was doing a Q&A there. And if you've been following Stephenie Meyer for the last 10 years, she does not do many events. You know, she doesn't come out and do many things. So you don't see her. And I had first seen her in, I think, 2015. She did an event for Life and Death, the gender-flipped Twilight. And it was so amazing to finally meet her, because I had never seen her in person before, and I got to do an interview, and it was, I think we'll talk about it maybe a different time. But anyway, so we had met her, and she was absolutely wonderful. She's like so down to earth and so chill and just easy to talk to. And then this Twilight anniversary was coming up, and we got this email that she had asked me and Natasha to moderate the Q&A for this special video movie anniversary event.
Release.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
So we were so excited. And this was I had Again But Better coming out the following spring. So I was still waiting to get ARCs in the mail. And in the email, they asked me to bring a copy of my book because they would love to read it. And this is like Stephanie and her business partner. And I was like, oh my God. So I like contacted my publisher. I was like, Stephanie, I wants to read the book. Can you get me a copy of an ARC? Because I knew ARCs like were being made for Y'all Fest that was about to happen in a month, but they weren't there yet. And they overnighted me 2 copies for her and Megan, who is her business partner, right? Her name's
They
Megan?
run
Run Pickle Fish Films.
Yes.
Yes, together. And so we go to this event. How are you feeling leading up to this? Like, I was so excited.
I had just started my job at Amaryllis, and I just remember being like, I need to take a day off. I did, this is so important to me. Like, I need to be there. This has to happen. And luckily, like, they understood and they let me go. It's just such a full circle moment. I think for the both of us, it was absolutely insane that we got to do this and that we were asked to do this.
I have it marked down. It's like one of the best days of my life. It was, it literally was. I have a vlog of it. I'm so happy I vlogged it, and it's called The Best Day Ever, and like hanging with Stephanie Meyer. I can link it in the show notes if you're interested in watching it, because it really is like the most amazing full circle moment for both of us. And we have dinner beforehand, and I have like printouts of our questions, and our questions had to be approved ahead of time. And I had these questions, they did, right? I think they had to be approved ahead of time, because I remember being surprised that my questions about Midnight Sun were not asked to be taken off. And I was like, huh, I'm going to get to ask Stephanie Meyer about Midnight Sun? What even? Oh my God. So we get to the event, and I think we do the Q&A first before we do anything else, right? Or do we? Yes. And it goes so well, right? I just remember it going really well. I mean, we're all, it's like
Stephanie had already like figured out all of her answers to the questions, so it just ran so smoothly.
It went so smooth. Natasha and I had already marked off which questions we were going to ask her on the sheet, like which one I'm going to ask, which one she's going to ask. And we had like 3 directors' chairs in front of the big screen, and Stephanie sat in the middle of us. And I wish I had given a camera to somebody to take pictures, because we have like one far away picture of this event. And during the thing, Stephanie Meyer answers that she has been working on Midnight Sun. And up on stage, I am like flipping my shits, because I can't believe, like, this was like the first time she said that. We were like breaking this news. It was absolutely insane. And she talked about Jacob Renesmee book that she has completely outlined, and she doesn't know if it's like 3 books. It could be up to 3 books. So I am flipping my shits giddy as fuck sitting up there. And after Natasha were like, oh my God, I can't. And then I did not know we were going to get time to separately each interview Stephanie Meyer for our channels. Like, I couldn't, it was unbelievable. So I just like, based off of what we heard, I obviously had questions to ask, even though we had it like prepped for this. I don't remember I was like blacked out when I was filming yours.
I don't even remember what I had asked her, because it was just like, we were not prepared. I do remember us being in a little room behind the theater. Wait.
But first we did the hallway though.
Did we?
Yes. Yeah, first we were in the hallway for these interviews, like of the movie theater, like against the wall in LA Live. Like, you don't remember what you asked? I don't remember what you asked either.
It's in. I have an unreleased Forks vlog with all of this footage that I should probably put up on my channel.
You
It's all
never
edited,
released
too.
it? It's edited?
Well, because I had someone edit it for me and it wasn't like to my liking, but now I've let that go.
Oh.
So
Yeah, you
it's
should
gonna
just
go up
post it.
at some point.
I
Yeah.
want to see it. Oh my God. So I think that's the Fork strip that I didn't ever post mine because I didn't get good enough footage, I felt like, to put it together. But so I ask her about Midnight Sun now and about and about this Jacob Fernese book, and I'm like buzzing with excitement. And I have this interview where I get to tell the world that she worked on Midnight Sun. What the actual fork? Like, I couldn't believe it. And I was so excited and she's just so nice and so easy to talk to. It was wonderful. Yeah. And then we go into this little room and I have given my books to Megan, I think, the copies of Again But Better, but she brings us into the room because she's like, Stephanie wants you to sign the copy for her. Now, let me just tell you, this is my first arc of Again But Better. I haven't signed any books. Like, this is the first time physically seeing the book in person. And I'm giving it to Stephanie Meyer. And, like, she's the reason I thought I could write a book in the first place. And it was, again, like, such a surreal moment where she, like, opened the flap and gave it to me. And, like, I didn't even know what to write, you know, like, how do I thank Stephanie Meyer for everything that her book has done for me? It was just absolutely unbelievable. And I signed the book and she was so nice. And we got like a picture and video of her doing it. It's in the vlog. And yeah, it's like one of the most full circle moments of my life. I just, so fucking surreal. And I just remember like collapsing. I couldn't stand for a second because I was trying to write in her book. I had to like squat because I was just so overwhelmed. And I was like, just like laughing. Like, why am I signing a book for Stephanie Meyer? But yeah, it was absolutely insane. What do you remember about that room? Because like, that's all I really remember.
I mean, I remember being very excited that you were signing your first arc and it was going to Stephanie Meyer. And I had asked her to sign an apple. And she was like, "Oh, really?" Like, she was just joking about signing an apple. I'm like, I want you to sign an apple so bad. And then we held it together, like the cover of the book for my photo.
Yeah. And then I was like, can I get one like that too? Oh my God. And
yeah, but we had like a good 20 minutes of just like hanging out with Stephanie in that little back room. And okay, so after we did the Twilight 20th anniversary celebration, we get a gift box of like caramel apples and it says from Stephanie Meyer. And I'm like, Stephanie Meyer sent me a gift?
I like barely remember that because I couldn't eat them.
I mean, I was just so excited. I've gotten another gift from her too because of Midnight Sun, because of the pomegranate. Because I remember she sent like a ceramic pomegranate with a necklace in it. Because we had, did you get that too?
I don't think I ever got it. I remember them talking. We had a meeting and we were going to do something for Midnight Sun, but ultimately I ended up, it was going to be sponsored and I just wanted to be able to read Midnight Sun on my own time. And I just say whatever I felt. And I felt weird about taking on a sponsorship. So I did not.
Yeah, we both did it, but I remember getting that gift and that was from Stephanie as well.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just been a very magical, life-changing thing being a part of this fandom for both of us. And before we wrap up and do Fangirl Tea Time, and Fangirl Tea Time today, we're going to be talking about two little more personal Twilight stories that were really exciting, but more personal. And if you want to sign up for our Patreon, there's a link in the description. But there's lots of fun perks over there. But before we wrap that up, I think we should just talk a couple fun Twilight questions. Like, who was your favorite character outside of Edward and Bella? We got to cover the basics here.
Yeah, I mean, it just goes to show my type, but I was also obsessed with Emmett, the big bear.
Of course you were.
It's so funny because, like, at the Twilight conventions, it was, of course you liked Edward and Bella, but it was like, what other character did you align yourself with? You know, like, who was your person? And, like, you would be known as, like, the Carlisle person or the Esme person. So I was the Emmett person.
See, I didn't really have a second person. I was all in on Edward. And so to answer this question, I was like, I don't know. Like, I guess it's Alice because I liked her as a character because I felt like she was on Bella's side. Sorry, my nose is running from like half crying before. Okay. Yeah. And then I was like, maybe Jacob now. At the time, I hated Jacob in the beginning. Like, I just wanted him out of the picture because he was annoying me with his threats to Edward. But I also loved Charlie and I loved Seth. I remember I thought Seth was so adorable. And he was like the precious cinnamon roll of Breaking Dawn. And I was like, we must protect Seth at all costs. So in the Breaking Dawn movie, I think Seth is almost killed. I guess I shouldn't say anything. But I was very upset in that moment because I think if I had to pick someone, it would probably be Seth, who I was like, oh, I love this person so much. Other than Edward. I really wanted to like Rosalie because she was like the blonde girl. So I was like, oh, that's me in this book. But then she was such a bitch all the time, no matter what. Like, I tried so hard. I was like, she has a heart of gold in there somewhere, but she really doesn't. She just wants a kid, and she's still not that nice to everyone around her. It's like, can you just please be civil? She always has to make a remark that's obnoxious.
Yeah, I really try to like her too, and I love Nikki Reed, and there's the wigs though. It was bad hair.
That's why you didn't like her? Oh my god.
No. I know. I like Rosalie, honestly. I had memorized her whole monologue in Eclipse. I was like, I'm gonna be Rosalie. Like, she had the coolest outfits, in my opinion. I liked her.
Yeah. I tried.
Who was your least favorite?
Okay, least favorite character was Lauren, and Lauren just has completely disappeared from the Twilight universe. I don't know if you guys remember, she had a human friend named Lauren who was really annoying and mean. And in the movie, she's like combined with Jessica, and she's not in the gender flipped book Life or Death, and she's not in Midnight Sun. I was like, where the hell is Lauren? Where is she? I never see her name. Lauren isn't here. It's like she's disappeared from the universe. And I'm like, did I make Lauren up? No, I did not make Lauren up. She existed. And I mean, I also, when I was remembering Lauren, I was like, remember Mike Newton's like hiking store, like a sporting goods store that Bella worked at?
Yeah.
Because I just haven't thought about that in so long because I've only been rereading Twilight over and over and over again. Like, I reread Life and Death and it was like rereading Twilight. And then I reread Midnight Sun and it was like rereading Twilight. And I'm like, we have to reread Midnight Sun because it's been so long that I've forgotten these little details. And it would be fun to do that because...
You mean Twilight, not Midnight Sun?
No. Oh, I meant New Moon. I meant New Moon. We have to reread New Moon.
Okay.
Oh my God. Midnight Sun is very similar to New Moon in my mind, those two words. Okay, I meant we need to reread New Moon. I don't want to reread Midnight Sun. I did it, and I'm done with Edward's point of view forever. I've had enough of him. We'll do a different episode about Midnight Sun.
I truly hated Jacob. was just so annoying. I was like, go away. You don't need to be here.
Yeah. I mean,
But I think,
we all felt that way, didn't we? Or I guess there were some people who liked Jacob.
oh, there was a lot of people who loved Jacob. And then, I mean, I guess the other one would be Irina. Like, she's so fucking stupid. Like,
Oh
come
my
on, girl.
God, I know. Ugh, not even thinking about her. It just put her out of my mind. She's so dumb and annoying. And of course, she's played by Shannon from Lost, who was also very annoying.
Maggie Grace. Yes.
Yes. But the thing is, when I read New Moon, and I don't know, I knew that Jacob wasn't going to be Endgame. So when I was hearing all this like Team Jacob, Team Edward bullshit, I was like, this is dumb. We already have Breaking Dawn. There's no Team Jacob. Like, it's only Edward. So it was just a marketing ploy, and it was like the first time I think a book series has really used a marketing ploy like that. It was just being, the first time I saw that being a thing was when Jennifer Aniston and Brad broke up, and it was like Team Jen and Team Angelina or something, which is like so uncalled for, but it's so early 2000s. Like, everyone was up in everyone's business in the most toxic ways. And so this book, I mean, Twilight came out in 2005, so we were still in that era where, like, I think this was happening with celebrities, and this was the first time it was really exploited for book marketing, for Eclipse, and it worked so well because everyone wanted to pick a team, everyone wanted to have an opinion, and it gave you that outlet to like choose a side and buy all the merch and like get really excited for defending your side. It was genius, honestly. And then like from then on, there was like Team Gale, Team PETA. Like, they tried to replicate it, but nothing was like this original one. All right, well, that was our Twilight special spectacular. I think we're going to wrap it up real quick with a fuck, marry, kill. Bump, 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 ba-dum, bump. All right, fuck, marry, kill today. We've got Mike Newton, Eric something, I can't remember his last name, and Charlie Swan. Who are you murdering and marrying today, Natasha?
Okay, I'm marrying Charlie Swan.
I don't know if I'd want to marry Charlie. Like, he's funny, but he's like kind of
A little boring.
Yeah.
I don't know. They all live in Forks. You know, like there's not a lot to pick from here. I don't know. I feel like I don't know. Mike's like a puppy dog. Eric is there. I guess I'll fork Mike, and I will kill Eric. There.
I think I'm going to marry Mike Newton because he's fun and very enthusiastic and is, you know, feels very supportive. And I think I am going to F Eric and Cliff Charlie. I'm so sorry, Charlie.
Oh, sorry, Charlie.
Sorry, Charlie. You're going off the cliff. I feel like Mike would make a really solid husband. Like, those golden retriever qualities are nice in a hubby. And Charlie is just kind of, he sits and watches TV and he's kind, but I want someone who's like more excitable. Eric's excitable too, so he might be fun. I just think we don't get to know him as much because he's with Angela. Yeah. That was our Twilight special. We would love to hear your Twilight stories, and I think if you want to send one in, like, I feel like we could make an episode in the future out of talking about these different, the impact that Twilight has had on other people's lives. So if you want to email us at thoseforkingfangirls@gmail.com with any stories or any thoughts or any ideas for future episodes, please do so. Like we were saying at the beginning of this episode, like, we love to hear your feedback. Like, leave us comments on Instagram. Please leave us comments on the YouTube, please, if you have any thoughts, because it's so weird putting something up and not getting thoughts. Like, I'm getting used to it, but also I miss it. I like to hear your feedback. So hit us up with any feedback on any of our platforms. You can follow us on Instagram at Those Forking Fangirls. You can follow us on Twitter at Fork Fangirls Pod, or you can follow us on YouTube and subscribe to our channel at youtube.com/Those Forking Fangirls. I think that's where you'll find it now. I think now we have a handle, but you can just search for Those Forking Fangirls and it will come up. And we make sure you're following us on your favorite podcast app. And we're going to go record Fangirl Tea Time. And all the links to everything we talked about are in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here today. Natasha, you have anything to add? Yeah.
No.
You good? You good? You good? All right. Have a great holiday weekend. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving, and we will see you next Friday. Woo!
Bye.
Bye.
This is Twilight. If no one got that.